their second game. So Denis Lazovic draws the number one player in history, but that number one player gets the match win. Magnus Carlsen joins Ferrugia as an early winner.
Yeah, Magnus was cynical in that one. He forced a draw with black. Not much young Denis could have done about it. Put up a good fight today, but ultimately he was up against the best. And this is a tense position between Maxime Vachier-Lagrave and Fabiano. Look at the nerves. Both players looking over, peering over at the clock there. This one, drama ahead.
We should do a deep dive into this one. Maxime Vachier-Lagrave has to win on demand to force an Armageddon, and it is his board. Maxime with the white pieces in a must-win game, this one. It was the Spanish, the Roy Lopez. And David, break it down for us, because it looks like to me that black has made a lot of progress on the queen side.
Fabiano, just one of the best prepared players in the world, as we've mentioned. And I think proving it here, black has no problems at all. He's undermined white's center as well. If we jump in and just highlight a couple of key factors in this position, we saw just a few moves back. If we rewind here, black has space on the queen side, but often this amounts to nothing. Fabiano did actually find the perfect moment to throw the c-pawn forward, and after a trade, we realized that white's central structure here is a bit flimsy. You cannot, for example, play the desirable move d4, occupying the center, because black could simply trade off and now win the pawn on e4. I don't see any reason not to grab this pawn. Maybe white has compensation, but here Fabiano would be happy. Instead, he's been forced to play the move queen to e2, and if, for example, Fabiano continues just keeping the tension, how is white going to untangle? There's a bit of a traffic jam with his pieces, and I think Fabiano will be extremely happy.
Really instructive by you to defend the pawn rather than capture on d3, because what white actually is perfectly set up for is bishop takes back on d3, and then the queen and bishop line up against this pawn on b5. There may be some tactics in the current position where allow black to escape, but that would be something that I would be concerned about if I were Fabi. So he's choosing between these options. He in fact took on d3. He is sometimes considered a machine at calculating, and the engine backs him up. This is apparently good for black, even if the b5 pawn does look a little bit loose.
Mentioned tactics, Robert. I would have been reluctant here, but as well, I agree. This is a weakness, can be targeted, but suddenly, boom, d5, and I talked about the traffic jam. Suddenly, white's pieces are real targets for these black pawns. If you capture on d5 now, it's a simple fork, and white would lose a piece. So already, tricks in the air, and Maxime, in a must-win situation, has to dodge them. The desirable move here might actually backfire. Bishop takes pawn, and I think black is just doing extremely well. Something is going to come to e4, something's going to land and win one of these two white pieces. Oof, tricky times already for the Frenchman.
Speaking of tricks, I'm also trying to get my radar on this position. After bishop takes pawn, can the black knight also jump to b3, creating some double attacks on white's position? You probably have to take on it. e4 is hanging. It just doesn't look like white will have enough time to capture on b5 in any of these lines.
Simple and strong, Tanya. I think you're right. This looks good for black as well, and that's not good news for Maxime if black has multiple options to give a good position.
And Fabiano quickly played pawn takes d3. He was not phased. He didn't think about the b5 pawn. He saw through the position and noticed that d5 push, or even just knight b3. So queen takes d3 is your best option. You look like you're going for a checkmate, a battered diagonal. There's a pawn in your queen and bishop's path. You're not getting there. I think that black's pieces are going to come into play, and I would say that Fabi is definitely not worse here.
Yeah, we're expecting Fabiano to be very comfortable in this ensuing middle game, and already big questions to answer for Maxime.
Wow. And it looks like it is a dream start for Fabiano Caruana up in the match. This is the final one. Maxime Vachier-Lagrave. move right now. He does have an extra pawn. Fabi with the bishop there, but to me, it doesn't look like it's enough compensation for black. What's going on here?
Yeah, let's ignore those engine suggestions below the board. Black is not minus 14 up right now. It is actually white who's up a pawn, as you mentioned, Tanya, and I think it's actually all about this black king. Look at the white rook on the 7th rank. The black king is a big target there. White's bishop as well, lining up against the black king, and Maxime should be winning.
And here's, David, how we got here. Just a quick action replay to take everyone through all that just happened. And in that last position, I think it's such a critical moment. The H-pawn coming on to H5. Did he make that move?
No, he didn't, Maxime.
Ooh, he's retreating. Why? Instead of pouncing on Fabi's king, he's retreating his pieces. But Fabi, you see how quickly he played that? He's getting in time trouble. This is a nerve-wracking moment for these two.
And Maxime, suddenly the white rook finds itself almost trapped behind enemy lines. Fabiano has broken the connection between white's queen and rook. Maxime has to keep the material on the board. He's still a pawn up, but suddenly black has the bishop pair. Suddenly white retreating, as you say, Robert. Never a good sign. You put your pieces on bad posts simply. And anything could happen now. It's all about the time scramble. We've got to keep half an eye on the clock where Fabiano is really struggling. But on the board, it's really improved in the last few minutes for him.
And white is up a pawn and has been. There's a pawn on b4 all the way closest to the clock. If pieces get traded, then that pawn can push forward, try to become a new queen. But for the time being, the white king is in some serious danger, and there goes the queen up the board for Fabi. What just happened?
Wow, Maxime sacrificed the bishop just to lure the black king out into the open. Maxime's going all in now in this must-win situation. He's checking the black king, but there's no checkmate. The black king has to move, it has to dodge.
Whoa!
There's gotta be a checkmate here.
He's made that move with 1 second left, and there is a checkmate, I think.
Look at Fabi did it.
Oh my gosh, you made it with 1 second on the clock. The queen can't slide over next to the king because the bishop on e6 covers the square. I don't immediately see a checkmate. Does Maxime continue thinking, or does he make a quick move and he goes up the board?
Knight check.
Oh, the queen's lost, and that's game.
Just resigns. Maxime makes a comeback. This one goes to Armageddon.
Wow, we will break this down for you. We will elaborate on what just happened. But Maxime fighting back. At the end, it was a simple fork, and he wins the game.
I mean,
Magical
the
stuff.
players, they're discussing their lines. Whoa, but there's not that much time to discuss because we will have the bidding Armageddon as Maxime Vachier-Lagrave makes a comeback with Fabi's king marching up the board. And look at that, they're actually putting their bids right now, guys.